Hi, good morning, and for some of you, good afternoon and good evening. I'm Soo Yi, and I'm responsible for cybersecurity operations at Highmark Health, which is a blended healthcare organization. We operate an insurance plan as well as run 11 hospitals and 400 physician practices, that's all. We're headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm actually broadcasting from East Coast in the US. I am thrilled to be here. And I think we need to do, what strategies you need to build, and what skills you need to acquire to kind of combat and hit Industry 4.0 head on, as well as adopting a lot of the same concepts and strategies and technologies, and how we need to upskill. I only have a few minutes today, although this video in its entirety will be posted separately because there's a much longer talk that goes with it. So today, what we're going to do is just focus on laying out the guardrails. Make sure you have a map that you can then use to make your own security program stronger, make those conversations with the board a lot easier. And also, if you're a practitioner, if you're just getting started in our industry, where you need to focus your training and how to upskill to be essentially future-proof, and make sure that you have a very long career within cybersecurity. Afterwards, let's talk on Slack, or my contact information is at the end of the slide deck, and reach out. I'll help you talk about your quantifying risk program. I'll talk about RPA, low-code automation, how to get your foot in the door, what to sign up for free learning, and how to do orchestration. But because we're so short on time, we're just going to go through a lot of the main high-level strategies and skills. But before we dive into this concept of Industry 4.0, I want to take a minute, and I want to thank Deirdre Dreiman, CyberAscend, Lookout, Security Diversity, generally the day of security for this platform. Because as an Asian American woman, and given the tragedy last week in Atlanta, events like this are critical because it makes sure that we have a voice. It makes sure that we're represented, and it makes sure that we know who's in our community to help us drive change. So let's get started. Our discussion is going to have two parts. The first part is just defining what is Industry 4.0, and then talking a little bit about how that pandemic we're kind of currently in has helped inflect and speed up the adoption of Industry 4.0. Part two is really the meat of our time together. What are the challenges when it comes to securing all this stuff that is about Industry 4.0? How can we adopt and turn challenges into opportunities with increasing our skill sets, with shifting how our security program works so that we can actually mature it as well? And then the two concepts of Industry 4.0 and cybersecurity have an sort of an intersection point, which is around automation and analytics. So I want to double click a little bit, if we've got time, to make sure that you understand what are the outcomes and benefits of embedding automation and analytics and making that a priority, not only for your security program, your team, but also for you as an individual in terms of your skills. All right. So what is Industry 4.0? It's the fourth industrial revolution, right? It's just a cooler way of saying the fourth industrial revolution, which really takes the achievements from the third industrial revolution, which is sort of defined by the use of computers and electronics in manufacturing. It takes all of those systems, machinery, and things, and it hyper-connects them. And everything becomes cyber. Everything becomes about exchanging data and information. So Industry 4.0 is defined by 5 characteristics. It's that hyper-connectedness of stuff, of things. It's not just computers. It's now machinery that is smart and aware. It's IoT. It's defined by interoperability, the rise and reliance on automation, massive uses of cloud, right, for scalability and extensibility, as well as taking all of that data, taking all of that telemetry and signaling, and then applying machine learning to it, applying AI to it, because in all of that information, all that data is a nugget of stuff that either your organization The organization's competitor is going to want to make sure that they hurdle themselves to that next level of productivity that becomes that new business driver, right? So Industry 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution, sort of started to create smart factories, right? Just improve the manufacturing process, improve efficiencies, speed production, innovate, get better precision and accuracy. But it is so much more than just a factory, right? That concept may have how it started, but right now it's a phenomenon. It is about how healthcare is being defined. It's about how media is being defined. It's influencing financial tech. It's influencing privacy. It's influencing retail. So it's not just the factory. It's really about how data is collected and processed to deliver the best, most unique, tailored thing to you, right? How you make sure you have the right news feed, the best investment options. And for those of us in healthcare, how we can develop curated wellness plans. So if you look up things like Industry 4.0, you're going to come across a lot of different visuals, a lot of frameworks. And they're going to be a little bit different from each other, but there are some very common pillars. Things like IoT, cloud, robotics, and I don't mean just physical robots. I'm also talking about software robots, like robotic processing automation, where we're teaching code to actually do the work that humans would do. The fact that data is now everywhere, right? It's not the castle moat perimeter concept anymore for security. It's where does the data sit, reside, where is it being processed, where is it being created, and applying security controls to all of those areas. Some of these frameworks for Industry 4.0 include security, like the one on the bottom left-hand corner, but most don't, which means that it's a challenge for us to define how we interplay with all of these new concepts. So let's talk about challenges. Speaking of challenges, over the past year, we've definitely all had a challenge. Whether it was staying at home, trying to keep our sanity, trying to understand how our coworkers are doing, and having that loss of freedom, and trying to figure out when you're going to reclaim your life. But Industry 4.0, because of the pandemic, has actually experienced an inflection point and this rapid adoption. For manufacturers who were considered essential businesses, for companies who may never really embrace full remote workers, organizations are really leaning into the technologies that actually define Industry 4.0, right? So think about like the role of the autonomous data center, or companies embracing cloud, because now they've got to ship everyone home, and they need platforms and connectivity, but they need to do it fast with minimal capital investment, right? Because what happens when you can't staff your operations in person? But you still need to run your business. How can you send thousands of people home and enable them to literally work anywhere there's an internet connection, without the long lead time to build out your networks, and to build out servers, and to build out additional infrastructure? So are there technologies and solutions that allow you to scale your services from serving 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 people across the globe? And what's going to give you that result in real time? So Industry 4.0, through the lens of the pandemic, becomes this phenomenon. We're talking about organizations leveraging technology that allows them to do self-correction, self-healing, minimizing downtime, increasing engagement, and eliminating sometimes the need for outages. So companies beyond manufacturing, including the companies we all work for, frankly, gleefully have embraced the ethos of Industry 4.0 over the past year. But the question is, how is your security program adapted, and how have you, as an individual, adapted your skill sets to meet the challenge? So there's two ways that cybersecurity is being impacted by Industry 4.0. The first one is there's new innovation. Innovations producing new outcomes that also produces new risk. These new risks require different ways of applying security controls. It's not about lifting and shifting pre-existing legacy security controls to new architecture and solutions. Industry 4.0 is all about how do we shift not just the organization and its outcomes, but then reduce our exposure to the new things, the new deliverables. Let's say reduce our exposure from cloud, bots, IoT, a smart kitchen appliance, security cameras that are networked, or the occasional autonomous car. Can we use the same set of controls that we would in a legacy environment? I'm going to pose a challenge to you. Let's take IoT, or because I work for healthcare, let's take IoMT. Yes, that means Internet of Medical Things. Think about all those med devices. And my challenge to you is I want you to create a security program that enables us to protect and defend against a threat actor trying to compromise a robotic surgical arm. That robotic surgical arm cost the company about $5 million. Bought it about 10 years ago. It is networked so that it can be accessed by someone sitting in the next room, in the next city, or in a completely different country. That operating system, the black box proprietary OS, may or may not include code from an obsolete operating system. How would you protect it? What are your options? Sure, you can try to ring fence the device. You could try to quarantine it and put it in a walled garden. What kind of proximate data would you start absorbing to build that telemetry? How do you determine what's normal traffic when it comes to a robotic arm? It's an interesting challenge, right? It's one of those challenges that defines the new risks that we have to deal with when we're looking at what is Industry 4.0. But here's the second way we're impacted in cybersecurity. Given the changing threat landscape, to keep up, we ourselves have to adopt the same technologies and upskill from Industry 4.0. But how? How are we going to do that? What strategy do you adopt if you're running a security program or you want to run a security program in the future? How do you develop those strategies, your frameworks, your disciplines? And then where do you focus training? How do you identify what skills to even prioritize to ensure that your organization as well as yourself is future-proof? So let's talk about those risks, these challenges. And I won't read through all 6 of them because everyone can read, and you'll all get copies of this slide. But Industry 4.0 is about innovation, right? It's about real-time delivery, it's massive efficiencies, but it comes with real risks. I'm going to pick on a couple of these right now, just for the sake of time. Who here has worked in cloud? How often does a cloud service provider introduce new security or support features? How quickly can your team pivot? How quickly can they adapt those new functions and features and services? And if it's not a security feature and it's more of an operational feature or something for the consumer, how quickly can your cybersecurity team or you as a member of the cybersecurity team, how can you then protect these new services and protect your users from causing harm to themselves? How do you then protect the data? Anyone ever stored data in the cloud? Anyone ever store confidential data in the cloud? Any large enterprises ever make the front page of the news because they accidentally left a storage container open and accessible, like an S3 bucket maybe? We've read the articles. We understand that there have been incidents from not just small organizations, but large, well-funded enterprises. The challenge is difficult to solve. Let's pivot out to data since we just talked about storage. What does your data look like? How are you ingesting all of that telemetry and signal data that is being produced by all of these things that are hyper-connected now? It's tough because data with Industry 4.0, data is raw. It's unstructured. But it still has to be shared to a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of different platforms without like a pattern that everyone's agreed to. There isn't a standard that's really, truly universally adopted. Different sensors, different systems, different platforms sort of all have their own way of ingesting and managing data, which means that your security services to secure and protect that data have to figure out, how do we adjust? How do we be flexible so that we're securing the data, we're protecting the data where it's created, where it's stored, where it's being transacted and processed. It's a complex set of challenges. And are you going to do this by hand? Probably not. And I certainly hope you wouldn't. So that then leads us into discussion of automation and using analytics to make sense of these challenges. But wait. For those who want to be security program leaders, those challenges are complex. They will require some level of technology to figure out. But your opportunity is to create an overall program using this 4-section strategy, 4-component strategy. So I'm going to quickly go through them. And again, I'm more than happy to have conversations and additional calls and Zoom sessions about this particular strategy. But if you apply and create a program that leverages these 4 components, your security program will be successful when it comes to securing and protecting your organization, whether it's Industry 4.0 or whether it's a new phenomenon in another couple of years. These are 4 basic fundamental strategies to have. First is focus on business growth. Map your security program and, frankly, your job and your responsibilities to your company's business outcomes. Your company wants to reach a new audience, and they think a new digital platform is going to help them do that. Your program and your job is to secure the decision-making process, is to secure the development process to that new digital platform, and then secure the data that's going to be held within that platform, as well as the platform itself, in order to enable your organization to reach those new markets. Our responsibility in security is to relentlessly protect the company as they pursue whatever it is that delivers on that bottom line. We can either be a roadblock or we can be the accelerator. It's going to help an organization make the right moves with the right security needed to move and remove obstacles, right, and vulnerabilities. Now, as part of that, we need to measure how we do our work. It's a fact of life. You have to measure what matters. And every control, every technology you operate had a price tag. The finance team in your organization that you work with, they didn't forget how much it cost. You can't either. So you have to be ready to calculate your return on investment of those controls. And I'm talking simple calculations. Start by counting how many incidents you've had, how many alerts were detected by a specific control. The cost per alert, measured by how much time it took to actually investigate it. The business operates on dollars and cents. You do too, but you need to start thinking about math and science. The second component of the strategy is understanding that competition in the marketplace means our organizations are fighting for recognition. And that competitive edge is oftentimes defined by a solution or a product or a service that is really customer oriented, right? Customer service oriented, or it makes things really easy for person X to do activity Y. Your strategy for security has to be the same. It has to include what we call human-centered design, because security is the single most friction-prone service in your enterprise. Do you want proof? What happens when someone can't log in and they forgot their password? What happens when someone can't access a website that they think they need for their job? Right? So while we're flexing to apply security to these new services, and this new technology, remember that we can either be a roadblock or we can be an expressway. And we can help people through automation and leveraging analytics to observe people to actually avoid making security mistakes. The Japanese have a phrase that they use in quality management called pokayoke, which is avoiding a mistake. Think of it like designing a process that's error-proof. If you have an electrical plug, it's only going to go in one way, right, into the socket. So think about how do you make security error-proof, because that becomes your customer differentiation. And that's how you can actually apply your security controls and your program help support the business outcome. Third, but certainly not least, is process. Process is so critical. It could be an ISO process, it could be an ITIL process, but you have to have a process. And at this stage of the game, your process should be automated. And if it's not, then start measuring how quickly you can get processes automated. Eliminate the manual work. Eliminate the things that don't derive or that don't produce value. And frankly, for your employees, that don't provide joy and that aren't a challenge. Think of your security program as a product that you are offering your company. Think of your technology, whether you manage it or whether you're an actual technology operator, right, and you're handling it. Think of it as a platform, as a unified stack where every sensor, every signal, every agent has a purpose. And that purpose is tied back to a business outcome. See how it's all interlinked. Now, fourth, and this is actually the most important piece, is create a culture of security. Strengthen it, focus on your people to help you lay out that culture of security. This is where your individual contributors, your engineers, your analysts are going to be critical. An organization that doesn't invest and doesn't upskill and doesn't roll out programs, not just for security awareness, right? It's not just awareness and training, but actually help change behavior so that people act more securely, not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to retain and attract talent. Be an A player, meaning ask more questions than you have answers. Give of yourself. Leave the ego at the door and always be learning. Any of these phrases on this slide don't resonate with you, or you don't really know that much about, what is DevSecOps or what is Agile, that's what networking is for, because we can help make sure you understand and then modify your development plan or your training to make sure that it's something that you know about. Now, above all else, you have this great four-stage strategy. You've got to measure what matters. Don't forget, create a book of metrics, create a balanced scorecard, create a report card, and commit to measuring that metric every quarter at a minimum. It could be how many people have certifications in cloud. It could be how many processes are automated and how quickly something can get automated from a manual process, but measure it. Now, I'm going to give you two pieces of homework. First one is, and these are your action items to help you on this path to get to a strategy. The first one is create a set of guiding principles. I'm sharing 6 guiding principles we use at Highmark Health within our security department. We measure our people's performance according to these guiding principles. We measure ourselves in terms of leadership. Next, I want you to take the business outcomes of your organization and I want you to layer it with the actual security capabilities, whether it's incident response, whether it's identity access management, whether it's pen testing. I want you to layer it, and I want you to start looking at how when you layer it, that intersection of business outcomes and capabilities in security create what we call security value streams. Your organization wants to embrace IoT and have this hyper-connected environment. How are you going to secure it? If your organization is thinking, you know what, we're a software company, we're a technology company, and you hear people talking about DevOps practices, your reply should be, no, it's actually DevSecOps. And then educate yourself on what DevSecOps actually means. Realize I'm coming up on time, so I'm going to go and try to race through the next couple of slides. Let's talk about actual skills. If you're a practitioner who's trying to break in, you want to look up, you're changing careers, you want to, shift to a different part of security. If your resume and your experience doesn't mention at least one of these 6 concepts and skills, then you need to change your training curriculum. You need to pivot your development plan so that you are learning something about cloud security. You understand what it means to be agile and what agile actually means from a process standpoint. You need to understand blockchain. And it's not just about cryptocurrency. That's the use case for blockchain, right? But what is actual blockchain? And how can it be used to secure data and protect privacy? There's lots of different applications for blockchain. It's a fantastic technology, but it's not just about cryptocurrency. Be able to, speak clearly about the concepts surrounding blockchain. That doesn't include, some well-known cryptocurrency companies. Automation. I'm not asking you to go back and get a computer science degree, but I want you to embrace simple automation like scripting and RPA, or robotic processing automation. I want you to look at low-code orchestration services or source systems and reduce and eliminate what I'm going to just call grunt work. That's low value, not very exciting. It's not going to make you say, I love coming to work. So the more you can automate, the more you can control as a practitioner what you actually get to work on, how you use your actual brain power. And I cannot overemphasize the importance of threat intelligence and using threat intelligence and data analytics together. Value of threat intelligence and sharing it is a game changer for security. It actually defines most of our conferences. It's why we have conferences, is to share information just like this. If we can share credible data and help another company avoid being victimized, that should speak to you right here. Now, when you combine threat intelligence with capabilities like data analytics and data science to create models, it's a game changer for your program, and you become an absolute valuable asset to the organization from a security perspective. Because now you can provide context, and you can provide what is truly a risk-based issue relative to things like corporate assets. For instance, here's an example. You can read a lot about different vulnerabilities that different vendors are pushing out, right? And there's different ways to treat the vulnerabilities. But not every organization runs every single piece of software or technology that has a vulnerability. How about I challenge you to create a report of weaponized vulnerabilities? What's actually weaponized? And then compare that to what's actually running in your environment so you understand true risk, and then you can pivot security resources to those specific areas that need the highest level of control. That way you can incorporate those defense in depth controls and technologies meaningfully, because now you've got insight. I did want to talk about a little bit about automation and analytics and that intersection between Industry 4.0 and cybersecurity, but I'm going to leave you with this. Why is automation really important for cybersecurity? Frankly, it's a resource multiplier. We have a challenge in our organization at Highmark Health. My challenge was I created a team for literally called cyber analytics and automation, because I need to be able to have as much capacity to meet the demand that the business is pushing out, right? Automating all the manual work is our audacious goal. Automation for cybersecurity also means that you can reduce detection and response times. And a specific example is, I want you to start orchestrating your incident response plan. It's written down, it's documented. Start scripting it out. See if you can actually get automated response, and so that you don't have people having to do some of the administrative work behind the SERP. With automation, you can create immutability with templates and pipelines. Again, going back to mistake proofing, reducing the risk, reducing the fact that we're going to have incidents. And then frankly, from a DevOps perspective, building security into the actual deployment pipeline and automating reporting of security defect density so that we discover it before it's ever out production. And as for analytics for cybersecurity, I can't emphasize this enough, but without analytics, we can't be proactive. Without the ability to do machine learning, we can't adapt our monitoring and alerting to the right issue or problem. We have only so many resources available to us, and we've got to deploy them to the areas that need them the most. And we can only do that when we've got insight. And insight comes through knowledge and context. So it's a list of some of the resources and references. I encourage you to click in and read a little bit. There's a couple of books, some articles, and some websites that I think are going to be really important for us, for you to orient yourself within Industry 4.0. This is my contact information. Feel free to send me an email, find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'll also be on the Slack channel all day. These are areas that I have a lot of personal commitment to, which is women in security and technology, securing privacy and ensuring privacy in our schools, AAPI, which is Asian American Pacific Islander Community Affairs. I'm a board member for Dress for Success Pittsburgh because it's all about putting women back into the workforce, right? And just a personal item and something you probably saw in my background is I love to rescue beagles. I think they're great. So I'm also a member of the Beagle Freedom Project. My name is Soo Yi. My mission is to deliver peace of mind. I thank you for sharing this time with me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.